I think there is another issue that has to be addressed urgently. If we talk about the capitalist crisis today, we should never forget that the new thing is that it's actually a global capitalist crisis or crisis of global capitalism. So, seeing it in this perspective and looking at the real economy, there is another thing which is closely connected, although it's not immediately visible, namely that the productive forces are actually changing or changed over time, and this had not been reflected in the way we actually produce, nor did we consider it in terms of the value dimension. So usually we have the productive factors as labor, raw materials and machines, divided into constant capital and variable capital. But what we now have is actually that labor is still and ongoing the actual productive force, but it is so visibly and more importantly than ever before as a matter of what we usually call the environment, meaning the natural conditions, the interaction with the natural conditions is something that is important, is of utmost importance in this context. Now, there is this ongoing old discussion about it, what role does entrepreneurship play, the relationship of rationalization and the reduction of labor in terms of variable capital. But this is only one dimension. What we have to think about in a new way is that the driving force, the basis, the foundation of development apparently changes. We have had a development that had been driven by energy, and now we have apparently a change here that is concerned with the production based or development based on data production. Data production as a matter of immediate interaction with nature on the one hand, and of people, amongst people, interaction amongst people on the other hand. This is not just a matter, I think, of changing productive forces, changing the factors of production, but it is a matter of a more fundamental change that goes beyond the traditional understanding in terms of the entire mode of production. So what does it mean? If we go back, looking at Polanyi, we find the original production as a matter of interaction embedded into certain social relationships, into society. And embedded means that it was, on the one hand, controlled by society, but the productive process was at the same time a matter of producing society, of this permanent production in this context. Now, as he said, there was a change towards a market-controlled, market-dominated society, which actually took society as such out of this relationship. If we take what I said earlier seriously, we find apparently a shift. Apparently, I say because I think we have to elaborate this, and we have to think further about it. But what I mean, referring to my other contribution, is that this change of the relationship of C and V, meaning constant and variable capital, is at the same time a change not only towards the increasing variable capital, but at the same time an increasing embeddedness, re-embeddedness of production. Now, this is a potential. It's not more, but it's not less. And as such, it is interesting that looking on at the global scale, we find apparently data have to be provided in detail and globally, but we find in many areas a reduction of tradable goods. So production is increasingly a matter of not production of tradable goods, but a matter of non-tradable goods. This means not least that there is a certain force looking at the objective structure towards a re-embedding and towards this immediate interaction and valuation as a matter of use value. Again, it is an open question what we do with it, because our thinking is very much concerned with the relationship or with relating these issues to the nation state. So tradable, non-tradable is related to the nation state. If something is traded globally, it is tradable. If not, if it's locally, it is considered to be non-tradable. What I'm wondering, and I think there is some work to be done, that we find actually a strengthened orientation on tradable goods, services being tradable in a different perspective. It's not the nation state, but it is the reference within and towards certain productive circles. This has huge consequences, not only in terms of economics, but as well in terms of politics. The nation state, the justification of the nation state as providing, as a reference point of providing wealth, is not valid anymore, at least not to the same extent as it had been. What arises here is something like reference points of productive circles that are interdependent, that are networked, and that take a new dimension that opens as well new possibilities. These networks are getting wider and wider, are leaving the reference of the traditional regulative systems of the nation state, and moving towards a new dimension of what we may call citizenship, based in economics and finding a regulative system. I worked some time ago, I worked on this in a book, in the preliminary notes on a new Princeton's. Now, this has the two sides of a conservative shift, a potentially conservative shift, where ruling, where government and where governance is actually taking a new form, and it is linked then to this subjective, voluntarist and arbitrary ruling of new princes, if you want. Having said this, there is the other point that actually the re-merger of use value and exchange value overcomes this tension and creates something new. Now, create something new means we have to create it. It won't be something that automatically comes out of the technological development as such. Nevertheless, it is an important point that we have this as reference point, not as matter of technology, but as matter of a new relationship of humans, human beings, men, between themselves, creating, permanently reproducing social relationships of a new order, and as a matter of relating to the environment. I think it is important that we reconsider especially this relationship to nature, to the environment, as a matter of productive force. This had been already said earlier, and we find these sources in classical philosophy, ancient philosophy, as well as we find them in the discussions on Marx. But the actually hegemonic system is pushing it outside of consideration because it is something that is considered as not being valuable, because it is simply subsumed under the interest of profit production. Now, if we take this seriously, instead of looking at profit in terms of economic profit, we find something that is interesting, and we find it actually in the capitalist centers, in the capitalist core countries, but as well in the so-called emerging economies, that is that elements of subsistence economy play an increasing role. And play an increasing role means that they are now formally recognized and that they are moving towards center stage. We should never forget that capitalism as such always depended on this kind of additional labor. It was the work of women in the house, care work, which had never been considered to be part of the economy, and it had been relational work whatsoever. Now, this had been commodified. It had been commodified even in the understanding of developing an understanding of service provision, of voluntary work, of civil society organizations. But there is a limit to it. And in my understanding, I worked for quite a long time as well in and with civil society organizations. Now, this was in the European Union. There is the understanding of political actors, of the citizenry, that it is important to keep it outside of this sector, against the odds, and to regain a kind of independent work outside of the commodified area. Okay, it's a wide field that has to be discussed. It's full of contradictions, but part of these contradictions are, in my understanding, due to the fact that it is usually taken as a voluntarist act, as a voluntary and voluntarist act. It's something people do, and they do it outside of society, meaning outside of the market society. It is easy, seems to be easy to say, okay, we restate this as the major point of reference. I think it won't be possible in this way. What is needed is to relink it as well to the economic process as such. And there I am back to the question of C as capital investment and V as variable capital, in short. The profit that is produced is the profit that is not, of which it is not possible to externalize it furthermore. It has to be internalized, it has to be considered, and we find, of course, different options, different attempts to do it in a way that we have certain ways of bookkeeping to reintegrate these things, that we have the what is called social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, corporate environmental responsibility, and the like, and so forth. And the issue at stake is that if we are serious about it, we have to reconsider as well the actually social value. If we look at the process of socialization of means of production. It means that we have to think as well about the process of the socialization of variable capital, meaning it is here, not in the voluntary act, not in the decisions of individuals, but it is here in this objective process that we find the basis actually for defining what is tradable, what is non-tradable goods, and as well with whom do we trade. Now, traditionally in economics, it is international trade of commodities. In this understanding, it would allow us to develop a perspective that moves to a re-embedding of society, not only as a matter of control, but as a matter of the valuation. So we produce goods and services, but these goods and services are social goods and services. Now, it is a rough outline. We have to talk more about the composition of capital, but we have to think as well about the property structures, the property dimension. It is interesting in this context that the debate on commons, the debate on new forms of organizing work, the reflection on cooperatives takes a new form and is increasingly important again. It's not only Eleanor Ostrom who actually got for this work the Nobel Prize, but it is this issue of recombining, and this is with Ostrom as well very interesting, recombining economics and politics. This is a huge challenge, and only if we understand it as such, take it up as such, we will be able to develop something new. Thank you.